Hey everyone, welcome back to my bilingual life. I'm Laura. Today we're diving into one of those tricky parts of English that no one talks about enough: how to disagree politely.
Exactly. It's one of those situations where your words matter, but your tone matters even more. If you just say, you're wrong, it can sound rude even if you don't mean to.
Right, and sometimes when we try to sound polite, we go too far and end up sounding unsure or even fake. So today we'll find that middle ground: how to express your opinion honestly without sounding rude.
I like that, because in English, disagreeing politely is really a skill. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. And it can depend on who you're talking to, your boss, a friend, or even a stranger online.
Let's start with a little question for our listeners. How do you usually disagree in English? Do you say something like, I don't think so? Or do you just nod and stay quiet?
I think a lot of people just smile and stay quiet. But the truth is, you can disagree politely and still sound confident.
Exactly, because communication isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about showing respect while sharing your view. In Spanish, we often say things more directly, but in English, being too direct can sound a little aggressive.
Yes, so let's look at what makes a disagreement polite in English. Usually, there's a softener, a word or phrase that reduces tension before you give your opinion.
For example, if someone says, this movie was terrible, and you loved it, you can start with something soft like, well, I see your point, but I actually enjoyed it.
Perfect. You didn't say you're wrong, you just offered a different opinion with a friendly tone. The key is that little phrase, I see your point.
Yes, others that work well are, I understand what you mean, or that's true, but they show that you're listening first and then you share your idea.
Exactly. It's like opening the door before you walk in. You're inviting the other person to keep talking instead of shutting them down.
That's such a good image, opening the door before entering the conversation. And I think that's why English speakers often sound so indirect when they disagree. They're not avoiding the truth, they're just protecting the relationship.
That's right. And if you listen to native speakers, they rarely say, I disagree. It's grammatically correct, but in real life, it sounds a bit too strong.
Totally. Instead, they might say things like, I'm not sure I agree with that, or I don't completely agree. Just adding not sure or completely softens it immediately.
Yes, those tiny words change everything. I disagree sounds final. I'm not sure I agree sounds open, like you're inviting a discussion.
That's what we want: polite conversation, not argument. You can still express your point of view, but in a way that sounds calm and respectful.
Let's give one more example before we go deeper. If someone says online classes are boring and you think they're great, you could say, I get what you're saying, but for me, they're actually pretty convenient.
Yes, that's exactly how polite disagreement works. You start with empathy, then give your opinion. It's confident but not confrontational.
So, in this episode, we'll go over different ways to disagree politely, practice tone, and test what sounds natural. By the end, you'll be able to disagree like a native speaker with confidence and kindness.
And I think our listeners will like this one because it's not just grammar, it's real communication. It's how you show respect even when you think differently.
All right, let's keep going. Next, we'll explore the most common polite phrases for disagreeing in English and how tone changes their meaning.
So, Carl, what's your favorite polite phrase for disagreeing in English?
Hmm. Probably, I see what you mean, but it's short, flexible, and you can use it almost anywhere at work, in class, even with friends.
Yes, I like that one too. It's friendly because you start by recognizing the other person's opinion. You're basically saying, I hear you, before you say what you think.
Exactly. That's something I try to remind my students. In English, showing that you listened is part of politeness. If you skip that step, even the nicest words can sound cold.
Right. And another good one is that's a good point, but you can use it when someone has said something partly true and you want to add a different perspective.
For example, if someone says, it's impossible to learn English after 40, you could respond, that's a good point, but I've met many people who started later and became fluent.
Perfect example. You didn't reject the idea completely, you just brought balance to the conversation.
Yes, and we can use other softeners too, like maybe or I think. If you say maybe you're right, but I see it differently, it sounds more open than just you're wrong.
And you can combine them. Like, I understand what you mean. Maybe it depends on the person. It's polite, natural, and invites discussion.
Another one I like is I'm afraid I don't agree. That one sounds very British, formal but polite. You could use it in a meeting or when you need to sound professional.
Yes, it's a great phrase for emails or presentations. I'm afraid I don't agree with that conclusion. Respectful, but clear.
And for casual situations, I use I get your point, but, or sometimes I'm not so sure about that. They sound friendly, not aggressive.
Let's give our listeners a quick set of examples they might actually use in daily life. Imagine you're talking to a friend who says, cold weather is terrible. You could say, I get your point, but I love winter.
Or in class, if your classmate says grammar is useless, you can answer, I know it's boring, but it really helps with writing.
Exactly. And with a coworker who says, this plan will never work, you could reply, I see your concern, but I think it's worth trying.
See how each one keeps the conversation open. That's the goal. Stay calm, sound positive, and share ideas without starting a fight.
Yes, and let's not forget the magic of tone. If you say, I don't agree with a flat, serious voice, it can sound cold. But if you smile and say it gently, it sounds fine.
Tone is everything. I tell my students to imagine that they're using the same voice they would use with a friend, friendly but confident.
That's a great advice. And even the same words can sound totally different depending on your face, your posture, your expression. Language is more than grammar, it's attitude.
Exactly. So far we've seen that I disagree isn't wrong, but it's too direct for most conversations. Instead, use phrases that show understanding first, like, I see what you mean, that's a good point, or I understand your opinion.
Then, once you've shown empathy, share your perspective politely. It's like saying, I respect your view, now here's mine.
Perfect summary. Next, I think we should practice how to recover if you realize you sounded too direct. That happens all the time, especially for learners.
Yes, sometimes you say something like, no, that's wrong, and then immediately think, oops, that sounded bad. We can teach how to fix it naturally.
Exactly. Let's move on to that. How to soften or repair your tone after disagreeing.
So, we just talked about how to disagree politely from the start. But what happens if you realize a second too late that you sounded too direct?
Yes. That moment when the other person goes quiet and you think, oops, it happens to everyone. Even native speakers have to correct themselves sometimes.
Exactly. The good news is that English gives you lots of ways to soften a sentence after it's already out. You can add a short phrase that changes the tone.
For example, if someone says, no, that's wrong, you can quickly add, I mean, I see what you mean, but maybe there's another way to look at it. That little addition turns a hard no into a polite exchange.
Yes. Or if you interrupt someone and realize it, you can say, sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead. Then share your thought when it's your turn.
Exactly. Those small phrases, sorry, I see your point, I didn't mean it that way, are like magic keys. They open the door again after it started to close.
And that's such a good metaphor. When you're polite, the conversation keeps moving. When you're rude, it stops completely.
Right. You can also soften your message before you disagree. For instance, can I add something? Or I might be wrong, but I think they make your opinion sound humble instead of aggressive.
Yes, and that's especially helpful for learners who worry about sounding rude. You don't have to agree with everything, just wrap your opinion in soft, respectful language.
Another trick is to use humor, but only a little. If a friend says something you totally disagree with, you can laugh and say, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, huh? It keeps things friendly.
That's such a good phrase, agree to disagree. It's like saying, we don't think the same, but it's okay. Very common in everyday English.
Right. And if you ever feel you were too strong, you can fix it later. Just say, sorry if I sounded a bit direct earlier. I really respect your opinion. That shows maturity and empathy.
Yes, because politeness isn't about being perfect. It's about caring how your words affect others.
Exactly. And this brings us to my favorite part, a quick mini quiz. Let's test how our listeners handle polite disagreement.
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay, question 1. Your friend says, I think English grammar is useless. What's a polite way to disagree?
I get your point, but I think it helps with writing.
Nice. Question 2. Your coworker says, this meeting was a total waste of time. What could you answer?
Maybe I see what you mean, but I think we solved a few problems.
Good. Question 3. Your cousin says, online classes never work.
You can reply, that's true for some people, but I actually like them.
Exactly. Question 4. Your classmate says, British accents are impossible to understand.
You could laugh and say, yeah, they're tricky at first, but they grow on you.
And the last one. Someone says, I hate English. How do you stay polite?
Maybe, oh, that's a shame. It can be hard sometimes, but it's such a useful language.
Perfect. Those examples show how a positive tone can change everything.
Yes, and notice that we didn't use complicated words, just small, kind phrases that keep the door open.
Exactly. The goal is not to win the argument, it's to keep the conversation alive.
That's such a great reminder for everyone learning English. Communication is about connection, not competition.
I couldn't agree more. And that's one disagreement we'll never have.
True. Wow, I really like today's topic. I think this episode shows that learning English isn't just about grammar, it's about relationships.
Absolutely. We didn't just practice new phrases, we learned how to use them to keep conversations positive. That's the part most textbooks forget, how to sound kind and confident at the same time.
Yes, and I love that all these polite disagreement phrases help you express your ideas clearly without sounding rude. It's a balance between honesty and respect.
That's true. And it's something we all need, not just English learners. Even native speakers sometimes forget how to disagree politely.
So let's quickly recap the key expressions from today. We learned that I disagree is correct, but it can sound too strong. Instead, we can say, I'm not sure I agree, or I see your point, or that's a good point, but I think differently.
And don't forget softeners like maybe, I think, or I'm afraid. Those little words completely change the tone of a sentence.
Exactly. We also practiced how to fix a disagreement if it comes out wrong. You can say, sorry, I didn't mean it that way, or I see your point now. That keeps the conversation friendly.
And of course, tone and body language matter too. Even the most polite words can sound rude if your face looks angry or your voice is cold.
That's such an important point. Sometimes we worry too much about vocabulary, but the real message comes from our expression. A smile can make even a disagreement sound nice.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, here's a small challenge for the week. Try using at least 3 of these polite disagreement phrases in real conversations.
Yes, maybe with a friend, a coworker, or even online. If someone says something you don't agree with, take a deep breath, smile, and start with, I see what you mean, but...
And if you try it, let us know in the comments which phrase felt the most natural for you. It's always fun to see how learners make these expressions their own.
You can even practice with yourself. Imagine a small debate in your head. Say one opinion, then answer it politely. It's a great way to train your brain to react kindly in English.
That's a clever idea. It's like mental rehearsal for real communication. And the more you practice, the easier it gets.
Before we go, let's share one last phrase that I love. Let's agree to disagree. It's polite, friendly, and it ends the discussion with respect.
Yes, it's a perfect example of polite disagreement. Both people keep their opinions but stay friends.
Exactly. And that's what learning languages is all about, connecting with people, not just collecting words.
Couldn't agree more.
So thank you politely, sincerely, and completely for listening to us today.
We hope you learned something new and that you'll try these expressions in your daily conversations.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who's also learning English.
Remember, communication is not about winning arguments, it's about understanding each other.
That's the heart of every good conversation.
Until next time, thank you for joining us here on My Bilingual Life.
Keep learning.
And keep growing.